Over the last 3 years, AI-generated filmmaking has evolved from fringe experiment to fully produced reality. And this is happening in two ways. On one end are studios using AI tools in mainstream films for de-aging actors, restoring footage, or creating marketing assets. On the other, more interesting end is a new wave attempting full-fledged feature films, where characters, sets, story arcs, and stunning visuals are born from prompts and created inside the minds of generative AI models. Now, as is often the case, the lineage of this is longer than the hype cycle. In the early 2000s, Weta Digital used an AI-based software called Massive to choreograph thousands of fighters in the film The Lord of the Rings. That is said to be the foundational AI step for blockbuster cinema. In 2019, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman used neural networks to realistically de-age Robert De Niro. In 2023, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny used AI-powered VFX for Harrison Ford's younger look. In parallel, AI also touched storytelling and marketing. For example, the short film Sunspring in 2016 was written by a neural network. In the same year, IBM's AI suite Watson created a trailer for the thriller called Morgan. Of course, post-2022, diffusion and text-to-video tools really upped the game. Models like Runway made promptable videos possible. Creators started using AI for storyboards, for concept art, for stylized AI animated shorts. OpenAI Sora made it possible to create up to 60-second text-to-videos, and startups like Pika and Luma productized similar capabilities. Of course, like everything AI, especially in the creative field, this movement has its massive share of skeptics and naysayers. But there are those willing to be part of the experiment too. In June this year, Darren Aronofsky made a film called Ancestra with Google's Gemini, Imagen, and Veo. Now, Aronofsky is one of my favorite filmmakers, and I have watched Ancestra. You should too. It's stunning, but the mixed reviews are understandable. Critics have said some parts of the film looked and felt like stock footage. Some have called it far from groundbreaking. So, it is early days. But India isn't just watching from the sidelines. Apart from the several very sleekly made AI-generated mythological videos on the internet that you must have seen, there are 3 notable AI film projects from India. A Hindi film called Naisha, which has AI-designed lead characters and is estimated to cost 5% of what would have been a 70 crore rupees live-action budget. Then there is the Kannada film Love You, made by a single creator. And of course, there is the very ambitious Maharaja in Denims, a multi-era historical epic from Intelliflicks studios that has built large-scale sets and crowds via prompts. The film was also showcased at Cannes. And our guest today is the man behind this film and Intelliflicks. Gurdeep Singh Pall spent 33 years at Microsoft, rising from the core Windows networking team where he co-authored the industry's first VPN to leading the company's communications initiative, the acquisition and integration of Skype into the system, which later led to Microsoft Teams. He then led business AI and product incubations before leaving Microsoft in 2023. But before he left, he and his friend Khushwant Singh had founded Intelliflicks Studios in Chandigarh. Their first project is an adaptation of Singh's novel Maharaja in Denims into an AI-generated film. Now, Gurdeep and Khushwant did something very different from other AI film creators, something far more challenging. Instead of outlandish and extravagant tech-fueled visuals, Gurdeep and his team chose to make the film hyper-real. That's the steepest learning curve in this technology. In today's episode, the first of a 2-part series, we unpack Gurdeep's journey and what brought him into AI filmmaking. At what stage of evolution is the technology at? How do creativity and tech, LLMs and humans coexist in this space? Where do today's models excel and where do they crack? What are the cost and efficiency advantages? Where is authorship and artistic signature? And what does the future look like? It's Thursday, August 13th. I'm Anirban Chowdhury, and this is the Morning Brief. Hi, Gurdeep. Very warm welcome to the Morning Brief. So glad you could make time for us at a time which is clearly early morning in Seattle, where you are.
Anirban, thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to this conversation.
You have had an amazing professional journey, right? 33 years with Microsoft. You were part of the core Windows NT development team, if my research serves me right. You are dubbed in some circles as the inventor of VPN because you developed the first VPN protocol. Then there was, of course, Skype, and I am skipping many things in between, which were equally remarkable. But from then to a venture now that's AI filmmaking, what brought you here?
Well, Anirban, I've been very, very, fortunate and lucky, I would say, where I got some amazing opportunities in technology. There's this saying about, kid in the candy store. I got to go back to the candy store 3 times. Okay. um, when I finished graduate school, this was end of 89, I got a job at this small company which very few people knew, Microsoft. And within months of my joining Microsoft, Windows 3.0 was released, which pretty much sparked the whole PC revolution in many ways, broadly. I was a software engineer, got to work with some absolutely incredible people in the field. And then the internet started. I was again lucky. I got to be working on the core internet technologies, and which really billions of people started to use. Then I got an opportunity to start the communications business at Microsoft, which
Right.
this what Skype is, what Microsoft Teams is today. So I started that, and then then I again got an opportunity to work on AI. Was worked on one of the early AI platforms, and then for 7 years of my career, towards the
Which
end,
was that?
that was in 2011. I was asked to run Bing Mobile. Also, at that time, I was running Microsoft Speech, which was with the previous generation of AI, and few other AI technologies. So, I got to be in a company where this very large scale transformations happen on the back of technology. So when I was working on AI in 2000, 2001, 2002, I
Hmm.
saw the rise of generative AI. What is LLMs and all that. In fact, there was a direct incident right out of that which got me into this AI filmmaking, where I got to meet with the founders of Runway. This is before Runway 2.0 came out, which is one of the
Mhm.
major tools that is used in filmmaking and video
Right,
nowadays.
right.
And this was February of 2023. And this is when we were really ramping up at Microsoft on generative AI. And 2 months later, I was meeting with Kushwant, who's the co-founder and actually the author of the book, the film we are making.
Right.
And
Maharaj Entertainment.
that's right, that's right. And he, when he shared with me that, listen, this book is it's been optioned twice to be made into a film, but because of the storyline, it would be a very expensive production. I I said we should just go make it with AI. And this was pretty early. At that time it was very glitchy. It was very, very hard to work with. But I knew that it was going to get better because I saw the arc of improvement with AI, with these
So,
models.
so, so when you made that suggestion, it was 2023, right?
That
Okay.
was 2023, and we knew we would have it was very early, but this is again coming from that early technology background. I knew that things are going to get better faster than people realize, and especially with AI models. So we made the bet, and now we are quite close to finishing it.
But let me take you back. Why films? I mean, have you been a cinephile always? Was there a story you maybe wanted to tell? Or, I mean, did you want this as a maybe a passion project after all those years, like more than 3 decades in the tech world?
Remember, these are all very, very good, deep layered questions. I was interested in performing arts, when I was in college, right from school days, and I even directed some plays when I was in BIT Mesra. But then something happened. I made a film using traditional methods. My father was in the army, and he was involved in one of the bloodiest battles fought by the Indian Army in 1965. Okay. And this story was not told for about 50 years. But finally, after 50 years, we got permission from the Department of Defense that we can actually make a film about it. So it is a docudrama. We made it. And that film is not yet been distributed. We haven't found a distributor for it. And it was such a difficult project. I saw how difficult it is to shoot on location. This was shot, it was a night battle, so it was shot in the day and converted to night with VFX. And and I even went to Mumbai and saw the editing process and I said, wow, this is really, really difficult process. So this was kind of in the back of my mind. And software people are extremely lazy. Like if we see something which is inherently complex on this thing, we immediately try to see like how can this be simplified with software. And then this is right at the time when I'm right in the middle of this massive step up in AI capabilities. So all this was going through in my head. And of course, when I was planning to retire, I was like, hey, this would be a fun passion project too. And it's got all the elements, hey, how can technology really transform something? And it's about the arts, which I guess I have some sort of latent thing. I've recently seen some filmmaking, which is very cumbersome. So, all these threads, I think, made this a very exciting project for me.
Now, in a previous interview, you've described AI as like the fourth industrial revolution. You've also said that Intelliflicks is a way of democratizing filmmaking. When we talk of cinematic expression, do you believe that generative AI can unlock something that traditional filmmaking hasn't been able to yet?
Well, yes, I do. And I really mean this about the democratizing part. See, the thing is, talent is universal, but opportunity is not. Okay. In the same way we're seeing with music now, there are these avenues where people are able to go and present their work. When it comes to filmmaking, the barriers are just too much. Like, where are you going to go raise a lot of money to do shooting, right? Where are you going to hire actors? Where are you going to hire cameramen and grips and on location? I mean, these are big barriers. And then even if you got the money to do that, you are then stuck in these very, very established, locked in models like Bollywood or Hollywood. And that's it. Your work pretty much gets stuck there. And, just as an analog, like, how Dojo Cat became really famous is because of TikTok, right? Like, luckily you can record music. It's pretty accessible now, recording music. So if you're good, you have talent, your music can go to a lot of people. You have basically democratized music. And I think in the same way, if you can rely on AI for that, I think this will democratize filmmaking like nothing else. And the next 10 years is going to be absolutely an incredible period of broad creativity thanks to AI.
Right. So, okay, let's come to filmmaking as a medium, and you've said that it's like you've given the analogy of oil painting and watercolor painting, and how new mediums always have their own grammar. Now, as a layman, but as someone who's sort of a movie buff, the striking thing about AI films, or the underwhelming part, is that they look somewhat still the same. So, when you come to authorship or artistic signature in this context, is that a problem that will be solved later via training, etc., the individuality, the artistic signature?
Yeah, so let me start by saying that these models are getting better, okay? And it needs more training data and the right kind of training data. We actually learned very, very slowly how to get the models to perform. And secondly, what is the actual technique of making a film, making a scene, right? So it's not just one model where I give one paragraph and it spits that out. It's not at all like that. There is a
Of
series of
course.
steps we go through
Mhm.
where everything from how the dialogue, the expression, the camera angle, we produce multiple facets of this and then we select from that. So we've created our own process. We set a bar and said, listen, we may not get 100% of the way there, but we're going to try and shoot to create a photorealistic film. And which is, by the way, a crazy bar. When I've talked to people in Bollywood and Hollywood, they said, you're crazy. Why would you go after this? Why don't you go after animation or something like that? Or
Mm, mm,
sci-fi, which is a very common thing right now. See,
mm.
because if you want to do what is the equivalent of Pathan's VFX scenes, that those can be done quite easily with AI. But that's not what we were going for. We said we want to try and see how far with this medium we can create something that would be acceptable to audiences and frankly, which disappears. If you're in the story, you should not even focus as much on the medium.
Would it be pushing you into too much of a technical realm if I asked you about the kind of tools that you use? A lot of AI filmmakers will be listening to this episode. So can we start with some? I mean, what kind of tools did you use? Are they easily available? Was there some proprietary stuff that your team is coming up with? If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, we've experimented with lots and lots of tools. And finally, the current set of tools we're using is, VO2, VO3 from
Mm-hmm.
Google. We are using Runway, Act 3, Act 4. We're using Kling, we're using Luma. And we have proprietary tools that we have gotten from GitHub, compiled them, and are running those models locally because for
Wow.
certain type of tasks we need to do that. So it's not one model, you give it a prompt and the movie comes out. So it is an ensemble of models.
Because there is no one particular model which gives you everything, right?
No,
Obviously,
no, not
yet.
at all. Not at all. Yeah. And even, there's still things which we've now we no longer have any tech uncertainty. We managed to solve all the hard problems. But listen, if you're gonna show a dance, a Kathak dance, okay, you have to be pretty accurate. And if you just rely on a model to spit out the dance for you, that is, it's not going to look very good. So found
Especially because a lot of these tools have Western references fed into them. That's what
that is
they've been
that is
trained
one
on.
of the problems. So they don't have the right kind of data, but also, like if I had even more time, I would have trained a model just for Kathak
Hmm. Yeah.
and or fine tuned it just for Kathak. So, but
Right.
we managed to figure out how to get the right kind of movement because the movie is set in three eras, and during Maharaja Ranjit Singh era, which is 1830s, Kathak was the main dance form.
Hmm. Hmm. One of the hurdles that my friends sometimes tell me in AI filmmaking is continuity. Keeping a character consistent, and we see that in some of the AI generated content that we see. Also, the light and shade that you spoke about. For the AI filmmaker that is listening to this, two hurdles that are very common and how you overcame them.
Yeah, so it was very character consistency was much more difficult last year or a year before that. It's becoming a lot better now. And
Okay.
basically it comes down to is that you have to first make sure the character is consistent in the still image because every scene, every camera angle is a new generation for that particular video sequence. We use techniques like style transfer to get from one image to another image to the video. So yeah, they'll have to experiment a little bit and find their own method. So that's for the consistency one. And then on the lighting one, it is again experimenting with the tools because depending on which video generation tool you use, if you're using VO or Luma or Runway, they all have their own idiosyncratic methods. So we have
Mhm.
figured out for the tools that we use how we can get the lighting mostly right. The place where lighting comes really difficult is really on faces. And getting that right is where we invest a lot of effort. And frankly, it's a lot of trial and error. So at that point, you have to just come and use post-processing tools to make it. So, good old tools that the film industry is very familiar with.
There's the manual bit also,
Yes,
not the.
yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. The statement we will make is that everything that the people see visually is all synthetic. So, in that sense, a lot of people focus on, listen, this is displacing, creative work. Well, I think some parts of creative work are being displaced. And again, honestly, I'm not here to take anybody's job away. That is not at all a goal. I'm not a sort of activist about against Bollywood or Hollywood. Not at all. I think this is just imminent. I mean, this is with technology, this is going to happen, and I think that we should all be prepared for it.
But do you have people from the film industry, technicians in your team in
Yes,
Intelliflicks?
absolutely. Absolutely. There's no way we could have made this. There's people who know filmmaking intimately. My gut tells me, though, that I think we might see a completely new genre of artists and directors who will emerge because they are more digital natives than even what are the sort of the current crop of famous directors. Because the medium is very important too, and it's more the people who are willing to lean into the medium and learn it while still having that aesthetic of making the film. I think are going to be really going to shine.
Got it, got it. Would you be comfortable sharing how much the costs of this film? How much did it take to make Maharaj and Jennings?
Well, I won't get you into specific numbers because that gets into a whole lot of other kind of things. But I will say that I think it's safe to assume that we did it in 1/10 of the cost.
In fact, perhaps it's more difficult and more and costly to make it more realistic than otherworldly, outlandish, and all of that, right?
Yes,
Because yeah,
yes, for sure. We could have churned that out much faster. Of
yeah,
course, by the way, I will say, like, the even in the cost so far, which I said is, think 10x, um, the costs so far include like about a year of learning, year and
Mm.
a, and so if you take those costs away, it would even be less. And I
And they
can
will
tell
go
you,
away once in your
absolutely.
next film. They'll yeah.
Yes, yes. The next film, we are so confident in how quickly we can make it, and also from a cost perspective, and what parts of the filmmaking can be done in parallel, because this is
Mm.
another very important aspect, right? Like,
Right.
but we now have that sense, and we've also built some software tools, agentic tools, which
Mm.
allow us to take some steps and really have just AI execute those steps on our behalf. So
Would you
those are.
share it with the world? Like make it open source those
So,
tools?
when we started off, we said, we eventually want to create the process and the tools. We want to make it more open. And I'm still committed to that. The challenge right now is that, it's so tied into anytime you make something open, you have to, it has to be a consistent system. Everybody has to follow the same steps and all that. We aren't in a place we can even document those and test the tools, and they work for only certain models and certain versions of models. So there is a level of complexity there, which I hope I can get to once. But right now we are focused on, razor focused on getting this film completed.
Got
After
it.
that, hopefully I'll have a little bit of more time, because if we can get these tools, to be a little bit more publicly consumable, it also helps us. We could make 4 films in parallel easily.
Got it. How long did this film take to be completed? And your next film you said much will be much quicker. What kind of a time frame are we talking about?
So, we've been at it approximately 2 years so far. And the first year was really about, I don't think you can count the
Learning.
first year at all, because
Mm.
the models weren't there. We were just like, how do we even get some basic thing out of it? It's not even relevant today, like what we learned in the first year, except that we got more familiar with the medium. And then I would say we've been at it for probably 12 months towards, I would say, where we are with respect to the
And it'll
current
be even
state.
lesser going forward.
Yes, going forward,
Wow.
we know yeah, it'll be lesser than that, because now we know the exact set of steps to get over the tech limitations,
Mm.
and in translating, what the director wants into creating those scenes. So we think it'll be faster, and of course, the costs would be lower as well.
Mm.
But we are kind of like a tech startup. I mean, it's literally in a garage. Once this film is there, there's been a lot of interest. People have reached out to us, so we think we might be making multiple films after this. at the same time. So we want to get to a little bit of a more established presence and office spaces and talent and things like that. So we'll focus on that.
Right, right. Two final questions. You've always been a strong advocate of ethics in AI. And in filmmaking, there are so many pitfalls. We spoke about Hollywood, and I was just listening to a podcast today where Disney faced some problems. I think in the next edition of this film called Moana, where there was some problem with a deep fake of Dwayne Johnson. They even in the past, they have sued Mid-Journey, for instance. But there are actual pitfalls, deep fakes, consent, cultural misrepresentation. How is Intelliflicks embedding these into its model design?
Yeah, so the most important thing is that the stance we have taken internally is that we are not going to, number one, use anybody in a way where they don't know that they are being used. And that means whether it be a story, whether it be their music, whether it be their
Artwork.
face with maybe their artwork, there is none of that, okay? Now, a lot of content goes into training these models. Okay, we consider that on the other side of the line, right? If we train any model on top of the model that is already is available off the shelf, which is called fine tuning, then we will make sure that content is something that we have legitimate rights to. So we have taken these stances internally on how we will operate. That's one. The second thing, there is the whole technical debate about these models and, what content are they trained on, are they not trained on? I mean, Google models are trained on YouTube content, and YouTube content, a lot of it, when you publish something on YouTube, they changed the licensing rights a long time ago. It gives them the right to train on a lot of that content. So,
Right.
so we are looking at that on the other side of the line as what is going into basic training of these tools. But anything which is in our control, we've taken the stance that we will not use anything without the consent of the person if you're using it in any form. By the way, in this film, anything which you hear, which is background score, dialogues, and also music, is all human. Is all humans.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we could not get the models to create the right accents and the right expressions and all that. So everything you see is synthetic. Everything,
And maybe that's good too. Yeah.
Yes, it's good, and it's a classic human collaboration kind of a thing.
Which brings me to my other question. This is the second last question. Sorry, I have to ask this. Do you see a lot of interesting work happening in the AI creative space in India?
I have not seen a lot other than I think people are now doing some pretty good stuff with images. That I'm seeing more of. On the film side, I still see experimentation and what I consider gimmicks. But that same thing is true, by the way, globally. It's all very gimmicky. I mean, it's more the wonder of the medium than really, wow, this is incredible.
You're so right.
But I have so much hope. I mean, the creative force in India is so strong. I cannot wait for people to start doing this, across the board, because you will see such incredible stuff come out. I mean, that creative energy. See, the difference between the West and, I mean, I think you know this. Here, people put in so much effort. But when it comes to a lot of the creative spark, I mean, India has, sometimes without putting in that much effort, people have that creative spark, which is incredible. And I think we'll see the results of that.
What do you think is the next exciting frontier of AI storytelling?
The holy grail would be that you are sitting and you have a story in your mind, and you're able to describe that, and you're able to literally speak that story. Maybe it's a page, sort of the outline of the story, and you hit okay, and a 2-hour film is automatically produced for you with all the visuals, all the music, end to end, within minutes.
Right. On that note, Gurdeep, thank you so much. This was such a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us on the Morning Brief.
No, thank you for having me. All the best.
So, AI-generated films are past the demo stage, but they are yet to be mainstream. The economics is real, costs are down to a fraction, but there are many unanswered questions around consent, credits, and clear disclosure. India, with its tech skill sets, creative zeal, and massive storehouse of stories, can lead this movement. But like all things AI, it'll only happen if ambition is matched with ethics. That's it for today. This episode was produced by me and Vinay Joshi, sound designed by Indrajit Bhattacharjee. Next Thursday, we bring you part 2 of this short series where my colleague Rajesh Naidu and I talk to filmmaker Shakun Batra on his AI film collaboration with Google. We hope you liked this episode. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, don't miss our new show, Corner Office Conversation, where the brightest minds of the Economic Times talk to the most interesting business leaders from India and the world on your favorite listening platform. Have a good rest of the week. The external clip used in this episode belongs to its owner. Credits are mentioned in the description.